Hello and welcome to the Steve Kalis Show. I'm Steve Kalis, and this is episode 3 of our Bible study sort of sub-series that we're doing. We've covered the story of Adam and Eve and their expulsion from the Garden of Eden. We've covered the story of Cain and Abel, and today we're looking at the flood story, Noah, the Ark, and the flood. And a very surprising, very unexpected, very dark, very twisted potential ending to Noah's story. It's very confusing. I've been thoroughly enjoying this journey through the Bible, through the Pentateuch, through the Old Testament, but there is problems with it, and I don't know how much to sort of get into here, because I suppose if you're listening to this based on the title, then you just want analysis, or you want to consider or think about or hear the story of Noah and the flood. So I will get into my analysis of the Old Testament and my real thoughts and feelings about it later on. Let's jump in. I'll summarize the flood story, Noah and the flood, and then I want to get to the story about Noah a little bit later on in his life. So here we go. Oh, and thanks as always to Paramount Prizes, one of the country's very best online competition websites. That's paramountprizes.co.uk, and Graham's Windows and Doors at grahamswindowsanddoors.co.uk, the very best provider locally of windows, doors and conservatories. So thanks to both our sponsors, we really, really appreciate it. Now, let's dive into the Bible. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm going to bring flood waters on the earth and destroy all life under the heavens. God goes on then to describe to Noah who should populate the ark. He explains, Noah, it will be you, your whole family, and take with you 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal, a male and its mate, and 1 pair of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate, and also 7 pairs of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth. He also instructs him to bring 2 of every kind of bird, 2 of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. So, here is where I think atheists and Christians who are dedicated to every word of the Bible, here's where I think they both get it wrong. Atheists dismiss the story of Noah and the flood as if it has no value, because its historicity is at best questionable, okay? And rightly so, because the Bible goes into totally unnecessary and unbelievable details. There's no way, for example, and this is a point that atheists have always made, there's no way God will be able to fit 2 of every animal onto the ark. It's not, it's not that large. It's not possible. Devout Christians and hardcore Christians will say, no, this is what happened. The Bible is telling us this as truth. Noah put 2 of every kind of animal onto the ark. Now, the truth, I imagine, is somewhere in between. I suspect that there was a flood, and I think there's some geological evidence in some corners of the world to prove that there has been intense, serious flooding that could have been the cause, the first cause of this myth or this story. This story could have been an oral tradition passed down generation to generation until eventually it was written down and then eventually consumed as to be part of the Bible. The Epic of Gilgamesh has a very similar story in it, and there are flood stories from a lot of different cultures all over the world. The story of Noah is just one of them, where the characters are fleshed out in a certain way. It seems to me that the Bible has adopted this story and added into it certain elements because they want to show God's power or God's mercy as they're sculpting the character of God at this point. They've put these documents and these scrolls together in order to paint a character of God for you. So anyway, God tells Noah to build the ark, and he does. He fills it full of all the animals. God then sends the rains, floods the earth, and Noah and all the animals and his family survive. I think it's after about 7 months, the flood starts to ebb away, and the ark finds itself atop the mountains of Ararat, Mount Ararat. An interesting side note about Mount Ararat is that it's a real place, it's a real mountain. There is a strange stone formation somewhere in and around Mount Ararat which looks sort of boaty. So it could be that. So I know there's been some archaeological exploration and some interest in this area, Mount Ararat, because that could be the final resting place. The Bible tells us it's the final resting place of the ark. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. Anyway, Google it. It's really interesting. So that's the story. So why does God flood the earth? He floods the earth because he's sick of his creation. He's angry with humans. He's angry because they had hate in their heart. Cruel by God, I think. I'm not really sure. I mean, it could be a totally different. Humanity could have been so evil and so dark that we can't fathom it. Or maybe not. Maybe it's recognizable to us. But at the end of the flood story, God seems to me to express some regret and some guilt, because he says, I'll never do this again. Never again will I wipe humans off the earth, that sort of thing. Maybe we are as bad now as humanity was then, but God has made a sort of covenant with himself not to ever do that sort of thing again. But anyway, I digress. That's the story of Noah and the flood. He saves humanity essentially by building this ark, keeping animals aboard it and his family. And then when the flood subsides, God tells him, go out and multiply, go out and make babies, go and repopulate the earth for me, because he trusts Noah, he trusts his family. Now, so I've told you my thoughts on that. I think like a lot of these stories in the Old Testament, they are parables. They are books to learn a lesson from, and they have been interpreted arguably incorrectly as history, and that shouldn't be the case. There is, I think, a vein of historicity going through all of these stories, potentially, or most of these stories. But the bits that have been embellished and added on by the Old Testament here doesn't help the case, and it's clumsy. Okay? And we're going to get now to the darkest part of the Bible so far. So here, I'm going to read you this story. Okay? I'm going to read you this story, then I'm going to point out the problems with it and what it actually means. Now, this is interesting and important, so bear with me here. This is the chapter called The Sons of Noah from Genesis. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan, and they've put that in here, and that is an important thing to note, sort of. I'll explain as we get there. These were the 3 sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered all over the earth. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of the wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. So Noah drinks his own wine and is now in his tent naked. Okay? This is important. Ham, the father of Canaan, they've mentioned that twice, and that is important. I'll loop back to why. So Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his 2 brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backwards and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. When Noah woke, and this is important, okay? So bear in mind, Noah is drunk on his own wine. He's naked in his tent. His son Ham walks in, sees him, comes out, tells his brothers. His brothers cover their father. Okay, that's all that's done. Ham has just gone, Dad's naked in there, and his brothers have covered him up. Okay, that's all that's happened. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan. The lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." He also said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem. And may Canaan be the slave of Japheth." So that is a very savage curse to put on this person. Now, you might have noticed the issue here. Ham is the son of Noah. Ham saw his father naked. Ham comes out and says, "Look, Dad's in there naked." Ham is the one who saw Noah naked, and this really upset him. So he says, "Cursed be Canaan," who at this point in the Bible is Ham's son. So there's two very, very important things to look into here. Why do you think, listener, and I want you to think about this and get back to me in the comments, because this does matter to me. This is interesting. I am learning. This is just one idea that I saw, that I read about earlier, and that I think might be right. Why do you think Noah was so angry with Ham? So angry, in fact, that he curses the wrong person afterwards. The story is, or one idea is, that the phrase used here is that Ham saw his father's nakedness. This line appears later on in the story of Abraham, when Lot, Abraham's nephew, is raped by his own daughters because there's no men around. They're in a cave and they want to get pregnant. Okay? They saw their father's nakedness in that part of the Bible means they slept with their father whilst he was asleep. Okay? Now, the Bible uses this exact same phrase for when Ham enters Noah's tent. The implication here is that Ham discovered his 600-odd-year-old father asleep nude in the tent and then sexually assaulted him. Noah was potentially sexually assaulted by his own son. The Bible says then that when Noah woke up, he knew what had happened to him. Okay? So it doesn't say that Ham's brothers told him what happened. It said he knew what had happened. Of course, he's been physically, sexually assaulted, right? That's why he wakes up in a fury. Now, I criticized the Old Testament last week because it does seem like some stories have taken chapters from the same story by different authors and spliced them together. And this is exactly what I'm talking about with this. There is some version of the story where Canaan is Noah's youngest son. Okay? And the Bible seems to have just kept this continuity error in for all these years. So Ham does this thing to Noah, and then Noah curses Canaan. The story, as we're made to read it, is Noah wakes up knowing what his son had done, and then says, "Cursed be Canaan," his grandson, in this canon. So it could be, and it has been proposed that this is just the curse of Canaan, the Canaan curse, cursing by Noah, is from a different version of the story slotted in here because they wanted to show, I don't know, that the curse, that there is an enduring curse on Canaan's line or something like that. So this is a very, very unusual, and I don't know what to make of it. And if you are interested in the Bible, if you're a Bible scholar, if you had Bible study growing up, I would love to hear your interpretation of what happened here. Because to me, it seems very dark and unusual and annoying. The reason I find it annoying is because I don't know what I want something from the Bible here. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm reading it. That's why I'm studying it. I'm quite vulnerable in a lot of ways at the minute, and I think some sad part of me was desperately hoping that if I was to read through the Bible, I'd re-find my connection with God, or I'd re-find a love for these stories, or, I was Mr. Atheist for years and years and years. I was a militant asshole atheist. I didn't care about people. I didn't care about people's faith. I had a point of view. I thought I was right, and so I just attacked, religious people all over Europe with my ideas and thoughts and condemnations about their faith. That was wrong. I see that now, and a part of me wants the comfort of belief. A part of me wants the comfort of faith, but I'm sort of untethered, and I haven't found it yet. I've been reading through the Gospels, and the Gospel of Matthew in particular, and that's better because that is for the most part, is a nice interpretation of Jesus. It's a nice telling of the Jesus story of that particular Gospel according to Matthew. Again, there are some, lingering doubts, some inconsistencies, it's because I haven't figured out what the Bible is. At the minute, I think it is a library of assorted scrolls and scribed oral traditions that were bundled together in order to paint a picture of God and then Jesus. But I don't know. What is the Bible to you? You listening to this, I want you to have an input in this, because you're listening to me learn in real time. You're listening to me or watching me trying to understand the Bible in real time. I'm not trying to criticize it. I'm not trying to attack it. I'm not trying to attack anyone's religion or faith. I'm trying to be a part of it. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to lose myself in this and find some hope, some light, I don't know. So what is the Bible to you? And that's a real sincere question, listener. So please leave us a message in the comments or something, and we can start talking about it. So let me know what you think. That was Noah and the flood, and the unfortunate story that follows Noah and the flood about Noah. I want to know what you think about that as well. Have I got it wrong? Is there a better interpretation? I'm not here teaching you. I'm here learning about it, and you're listening in. Okay? So please feel free to teach me if you know better. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the Steve Kalish Show.